Thank you. That was a nice break. Here we are. So, how does all this relate to pandemia? Pandemia. I called her epidemia in the last retreat, but she got bigger, so now she's called pandemia. I don't know why I make her a female. We always made our hurricanes female too, but now we do them gender-free. That's good. So, there's something else that Trungpa says in his commentary that I want to touch on, and it will bring us into the next part of this process that I would like to engage us in. He speaks about the concept of Bardo, which we've touched on earlier, about how the concept is applicable not just to the period after the time of death and before the time of the next rebirth or liberation itself. So he says the concept of Bardo is based on the period between sanity and insanity, or between confusion and the confusion just about to be transformed into wisdom. Now, bear in mind the meanings of these terms. Confusion meaning ignorance about the true nature of reality, ignorance of the true nature of reality, seeing reality's manifestations, our own appearance and everything in the phenomenal reality that appears to be outside us, seeing it as solid and self-existent, self-existing, rather than understanding directly how what we perceive and experience really is a mirroring of our own mind's contents and process, and the natural, I love this expression, the natural play of our own mind. So the natural play of our own mind can also bring forth manifestations of great clarity and translucency, but what we're talking about here are those manifestations that we can call confusion, where we're grasping to the notion of self in oneself and in others and in the things that we encounter, including our emotions and our thoughts, our memories, our desires, our fears. So confusion actually points to the term confusion, the concept of confusion, points to ignorance in the true meaning of the word, meaning not knowing, ignoring, not able to know even the actual nature of reality, empty and open and spacious, without limit, without substance, without center or circumference, and inherently luminous. And then he says, between that state, confusion, ignorance of the nature of reality, and the confusion just about to be transformed into wisdom. So the Bardo experience, the Bardo concept points to the experience of being between confusion, ignorance, and confusion just about to be transformed into wisdom. And the meaning of wisdom in the Buddha Dharma is not knowing a lot of stuff, not even having wise thoughts about things, like a sage might be said to have. But wisdom actually means emptiness, meaning no inherent, intrinsic reality to the experiences of the senses and phenomenal reality, including our own consciousness. In the practical experiential terms that we can use to address our own actual lived experience. We could say that this gap is between past and future. The past experience or reality is no longer what it was, and the future experience or reality is not here yet. This is certainly how people are experiencing in this moment that we are in a pandemic reality, novel literally and figuratively, as the coronavirus has been called a novel coronavirus, a new one. So as this disease has penetrated into every aspect of life, touched beings in all places, at all stations of life, beings of great privilege, beings greatly impoverished, beings very strong, beings very weak, beings of robust health, beings of very shaky health, beings who are wealthy, beings who are destitute. Principally human beings, although it appears that some animals are also able to acquire this virus, but principally human beings we're talking about. So the groundlessness that I spoke of at the beginning being a strong component of the experience of Bardo is very apt for what many are experiencing in this Bardo of Pandemia. From one day to the next, practically, the very pathways that one walked physically and with the senses through one's world have been taken away or blocked off or made dangerous. It's odd, you go out and you have to take precautions that your mind never had to think about before, and then when you come home to the familiar, you can't experience it as familiar. You're too busy disinfecting or making safe. It's confusing. It's very confusing to the mind and very exhausting. People have been feeling very tired. I've been hearing from many, and I've experienced it myself. There's an existential uncertainty abroad in the land, all the land, throughout the whole planet. There is the genuine threat of death unexpectedly at any moment. People know that the virus is extremely dangerous and that it can be lethal. It often is not, apparently. It often is a mild illness for some, but for some it's literally that you're coughing one day and then a couple of days later you're dead. So this is definitely what is legitimately considered an existential threat. The threat to your existence, to our existence, is very frank, very present, and can only be controlled to some extent. You can do the best possible job of, gloves and masks and so on, and still somehow one can acquire the virus without even knowing how. There's also loss of dear ones, as well as loss of familiarity of place and method of living in place. There's loss of people, the loss of the ones that you love, the ones who've loved you, and an extreme isolation often accompanies that loss. And it's not just at the personal level. Everybody who's affected is aware of their lives suddenly changing. The parameters of safety and of reasonableness even are shaky, not clear. So that's the experience of confusion that's pointed to by Trungpa Rinpoche's comment. And what is this experience that he speaks of confusion about to be transformed into wisdom? How shall we understand that in this situation, the global pandemic? Some are speaking about how the consciousness of humans might change, there might be a waking up to the immense power of compassion and fellow feeling, to the immense potency of compassionate action and caring for the well-being of others. People write and speak of experiencing that at the personal level when they themselves are going through the illness, or when they're helping others who are, or whether they're just trying to work with their communities in that way. And some want to expand this direct experience of the power and beauty and grace of compassionate companionship, even at a distance, want to expand it into an understanding that perhaps for one's own country, one's own nation, one's own communities, and perhaps redounding broadly throughout civilization, there might be a shift in the consciousness of humans to bring the values of the collective consciousness, the gathering of experience from all to the benefit of all, the understanding of resources being here for all and therefore to be protected for all and used wisely for the benefit of all. This seems to be pointing to the potential of a shift in consciousness to altruism from individualism or self-interest. And it's the shift that we as practitioners are seeking to make, mirrored perhaps at a very great scale now in the potential of humankind to make that kind of a shift from self-grasping to love and compassion for others, to love and compassion for all. Now, in case that could be thought of as a kind of pie-in-the-sky potential, not very likely to occur, I would just like to bring the clear understanding that for us as practitioners, we note that this is not an easy transition to make. Even though a great insight, such as a pandemic, might pierce our self-grasping, to then live day by day by day what that piercing has shown us is not the easiest thing we might ever have attempted to accomplish. Our self-interest and our self-grasping are really a heavy weight, and we have accrued huge karma associated with that confusion and the grasping and hatred that it gives rise to, the competition, the selfishness, and so on that it gives rise to. So it's not an easy change for even the highest-minded individual to make. And so if we're talking about changes in culture, it's not necessarily an easy change, but it's a very simple change. It's very simple. It's not like building a dam. It's like not building a dam. It's not like creating a new continent. It's like allowing that continent to be what it is. So it resides more in a not doing of what we've been doing and an opening to the potential of that little tiny seedling of compassion and fellow feeling in the mind of one and another, to become the forest of great trees, many of which used to cover this beautiful planet. A forest of great trees living from the root right on up, connected at the root, as are we. So that is an example of a way to think about how the confusion of the state caught in the illusion of there being solidity that one can then grasp to and cling to and constantly remanufacture based on an erroneous notion of what self actually means. It's not to say there isn't a self, it's what it means that is erroneous. That confusion may be in this moment in a rich potential breaking through of what seemed formerly solid ground, the breaking through of a new thought. Oh, maybe by making sure that all are well, we are able to save more, that looking out for the entire community of human beings and the living environment of which we're a part isn't the dream of some, what they used to call tree sitters. Do you remember some years ago? People who took to the trees to live in the trees to prevent the trees from being cut in the old growth forests. And so they were laughingly called tree sitters and proudly called tree sitters by some. So let's not be too quick to say, oh, that's pie in the sky thinking. Let's see in our own lives how to do that. And then to do it together. Let's see in our own lives how we do that, how we make that shift. In the training of the Bodhisattva, on the path of Bodhisattva, called Bodhisattva Yana, the Bodhisattva vehicle in the Buddha Dharma, the shift is made both aspirationally and operationally. Aspirationally, we aspire, you remember the opening prayers we began with this afternoon? The aspiration prayers that may all beings who've been like our mothers, may they be happy. And may they have the causes of happiness, which causes are acts of goodness that bring happiness and well-being to others, not acts of self-grasping that are self-aggrandizing and self-reinforcing. Let me say a word here about the healthy self-care and self-concern that we need to be operational egos in the world, not the negative ego that is grasping to its own interests and to its own falsely understood reality, but the ego that is creative, agentic, can perform the executive functions of a healthy personality. We don't want to get rid of that one. That one's that's really significantly important in life. And we don't even want to do any kind of negatively imbued destructive thinking, like let's kill off the ego so that we are then free to be enlightened. Let's not kill off something. Let's little by little retract ourselves from those actions of body, speech, and mind that are self-referencing, that have to do with continuously having self, one's own interests, the I, me, mine, be the object of our concern and the object of our committed actions for our own benefit. And that is a process that has operational import at the obvious manifest level of our speech and our activities. When we are compelled by self-interest to speak or act in a certain way, in the Dharmic understanding, that motivation, and again, it's the motivation that is always key, that motivation makes of those actions, however kind-hearted they look, however generous they look, makes of them self-interested actions that are non-virtuous in the meaning given in the Dharma. Non-virtuous, not meaning that they are intended to cause harm, but that they will cause suffering for oneself, and very possibly also for others, but for oneself, they will cause ultimately suffering. It is taught over and over and over again in the Dharma that all actions that are directed towards one's own self-interest, that come from self-grasping, in other words, will eventually lead to suffering. They give rise to they spring from the original ignorance that we've spoken of briefly, and they give rise to grasping and aggression. And those arisings of grasping and aggression, as they're expressed in thought and word and deed, wrap us more tightly in the confusing mind, the mind of confusion, literally, that cannot see the true nature of reality. And so one digs deeper and deeper and deeper into the ruts, into the grooves that keep us imprisoned, really, in the false illusion of the self being the appropriate focus of all of our efforts and concerns. So at the gross level, gross, I don't mean indecent or ugly, I just mean at the level that's immediately perceptible because it's externally recognizable. It manifests, in other words, visibly, audibly, physically. At the gross level, we can school ourselves to drop habits of self-aggrandizement or self-referencing or self-interest. As we become conscious of them, we can school ourselves to let them diminish in our repertoire of ordinary life. Now, even that is not so easy, but it's doable. It's doable. Same thing for speech, so action and speech. And the principal method by which we become able to do that is the method called recognizing. The method of cultivating an inward attention that allows you to see your own thoughts. This is very easy to do. In fact, you see your own thoughts all the time. All the time. If I ask you in this moment, what's in the back of your mind, you can instantly tell me. It doesn't take you even a minute. It's like it's right there. And that is a huge strength of our mind that is called in the in Mahamudra, in one of the systems of the Tibetan meditative disciplines. It's called the recognizing faculty of mind, the luminosity of mind, the clarity, the light quality of mind allows us to recognize mind's contents, mind's process. We can see our thoughts. Just take a second to see. Now, what we usually do, if we happen to see our thoughts when we're not meaning to, when we're not looking consciously, and they don't forward the motion of self-interest, we'll go right past them usually. Also, thoughts kind of tickle us from time to time to give us a little warning. I mean, we have the capacity to recognize when we're about to step into a pit or quicksand, or when we're about to do that thing we had just made a commitment not to do, or expressed a mild interest in not doing. And it can be a little in the mind that attracts you to the awareness that you're about to do that. Very often, one goes right past that. It's as if a little flag flicks up, and you keep on going. You notice it, but you don't pay any attention. You keep on going. I know that what I'm describing you have experienced, so don't pretend you haven't. I know you have, right? And it's possible not to just go right on past that little flag. It's possible to turn around and look right at it, whatever the thought is in the mind. Now, for some reason in my mind, there's a thought of a cat. And the cat's name is Juliana, my name for her. She lives in Sacramento, in Davis, actually. And she's watching this, I think. So there she is. I don't know why Juliana came to mind. I'll ask at some point. But it is possible when there's a little niggling at the, at the side. It's usually for me right over here. For some people, it might be on the left. For me, it's on the right, right about here. I'm laughing at this because it's so human. It's really, when I talk about these things with other people, when they're actually in the room with me and they can speak, people are nodding their heads, saying yes. So for me, it's on the right. It might be on the left for you. For somebody else, it might be up here. But so when there's this little kind of itchy thing, or this little, and then if in my mind, I have to turn here. It's not really happening over there. There's just this sensory thing happening over here. If I actually in that moment stop and look within, that thought will be very clear. It's very visible. And because that's the case, and that's the faculty we all have, it is the recognizing capacity of mind, the clarity faculty of the natural mind. Because that is your natural endowment, inalienably so, you have, in that moment, the power to direct your motivation and therefore your actions and therefore your results in the direction that you might say you are longing to go, and to fuel them to move swiftly and with clarity and determination and courage in the direction, for example, of altruism, of placing others before self. We start perhaps by recognizing that others are existing here on the globe with us. And then maybe we become a little bit more awake and we recognize, oh, not only do they exist here, but they have the same complement of desires and needs and wishes and fears that I have, and the same longing for happiness and well-being for themselves and those they love. Karma, all the basis of that, you can expand your own caring concern just a little beyond your personal interest circle, And you can begin to take in other beings who have the same complement of aspirations and fears that you have, strengths and weaknesses, vulnerabilities and powers. And gradually one peoples the sky with all beings throughout the universe and directs to them the same power and profundity and gloriousness of love heretofore reserved to those one is most proximate with and who are under one's own special care, like your children, or your spouse, your partner, or your dearest friend. This process is gradual. This process of moving the boundaries of care and concern from the most narrow to the absolutely expanded. It's a process that's gradual, but the insight that calls you to recognize the possibility of it is an insight that occurs in an instant. And that can change the entire trajectory of your life. And not only of this life, but of all lifetimes to come. Because this begins to be the seedbed of the Bodhisattva commitment. The Bodhisattva commitment to care for all beings as one's own most dear, and to live in this and every lifetime for their benefit and ultimate liberation from ignorance and the suffering that it gives rise to. In other words, the aspiration becomes the ultimate aspiration. The aspiration becomes absolute, and the life will follow that. Each lifetime will follow that. Really, truly. It's said that the Bodhisattva aspiration to love and liberate all beings is so rare that its arising in the mind of a being is often likened to a flash of lightning that illuminates the dark of night. And the path that illumination opens to us, we could say, oh, I'm going to follow that path. It's very clearly marked because so many great Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, great beings of love in any tradition, you don't have to be a Buddha, a Buddhist to become a Bodhisattva. You don't even have to be a human being to become a Bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas take any form that beings need. So, but we can say, if we just think of humans, the path is clearly marked. I can see the footprints. And besides, we know the names of some of the places, and so on. It doesn't matter how clearly marked it is, although that's inspiring. But what matters is you stepping forward one step at a time. The path unfolds before you as you walk it. And the first step is taken, perhaps in a moment of the greatest despair and suffering, perhaps in a moment when a pandemic encircles the globe and kills hundreds of thousands of humans, and you know some of them. You may be one of them. So the ground as we've been walking on it is shaking beneath us. It's not what it was before. We don't know what it will become, but the ground that you're walking on can become the Bodhisattva path when you generate that altruistic intention and let it lift you and draw you forward. And then it is your effort to not do what you've been doing all your lifetimes that will open the path for you step after step after step. What we have been doing has gotten us where we presently find ourselves. Rinpoche, Garchen Rinpoche put on the website of the Garchen Institute. You can go there at any time. It's called, the website address is garchen.net. There are several videos, 3 videos, I think, that he recorded for us and for all of us, meaning you, everybody around the globe. Anybody who wants to see them can see them and hear him speaking. He spoke about the causes of such a pandemic. And he spoke of the great suffering that beings are experiencing with it. And he said that the causes, karmically speaking, if I remember correctly, are anger, hatred, and jealousy. This is a very empowering teaching. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but to be told that the causes of a pandemic are something that you have in your own mind is so freeing. It means that you can do something about it, whereas a pandemic seems to be completely beyond our capacities to have any effect on. But my first teacher on the formal path in this lifetime, Venerable Dahaniwa, who spoke about the concept of bioresonance, how the even the shape of the mountains and the patterns of the weather and the way the waters run is not separate from the way that the minds of human beings are and their condition and their potential. That we are in a bioresonant, reciprocating relationship with the natural world. So when we hear that karmically, the seeds of this pandemic that we're all experiencing together are mind states that we're extremely, very, very familiar with. We can recognize in ourselves easily. We can recognize in others easily. We can't do anything about what's in others' mind streams, but we can do what's in for ourselves. We can do something about what's in our mind stream. We can cultivate that inward attention that sharpens our ability to recognize what is in our mind stream at any given moment. And at that moment, we're completely at choice. What does that mean? To be at choice means you are at a choice point and you have the power to choose what happens next for you, what you do next with your complement of gifts and weaknesses and potentials and derelictions and so on. The whole mess, the whole creative mess. It's always available. We don't always see that we're at a choice point, but we have the capacity to see. And we have the capacity to act. I had in mind this afternoon that I wanted to read you material from the Bardo Thotrol, but somehow this is what happened instead. You can get the book. And I love this particular translation of Trungpa Rinpoche and Francesca Fremantle. There's also a new translation that's just come out of the complete Bardo Thotrol, including the sadhana practice, the actual formal practice. I haven't seen it yet. I think I just wanted to sit here with you in this simple way and speak about what I know to be true from my own experience, and to give that to you in a way that you can use. And the rest of our time together tonight and tomorrow will be focused on how to put into practice the things that we've spoken about here today. In other words, how to do some inner practice that can help us with the condition of our mind, and therefore with all of its expressions manifest in the world and in our lived reality. It's interesting to note that sitting here in this magnificent temple surrounded by really many of my best friends all around here in these beautiful Thangka paintings, and with two other human beings, the intimate experience that I am aware of is with you, whom I'm not seeing, but to whom I'm speaking. And I don't know whether my gaze is directly into the camera or not, but I am seeing you there. Some of whom I know, some of you I know very well over many, many years of study and practice together. Some of you I've only recently met, some I haven't met yet. Some I know through correspondence or working together on the phone. But honestly, what I can say about you is that you are as precious to me as my guru is. And I pray for you. I pray to what is, to the absolute, that whatever I may say here this weekend, whatever I've said today, or whatever I might speak to tonight or tomorrow, might give you confidence that the Bardo moment that we're in the land of Pandemia is the very moment in which you yourself, each one of you, each one of us, can recognize the choice point, can see our own mind, and recognize the potential of waking up in that mind. We use that word a lot, waking up. Oh, that person's awake, that person's not so awake. And then there's this wonderful term, woke. Oh, she's so woke. I just love that expression. But have you noticed in the morning, I should say, I have noticed in the morning that there's often a period where it's not even that I'm between sleeping and waking, I'm in both states at once. And I have to choose, or I get to choose, I'm able to choose which state I want to continue in. That's where we are. That's the kind of waking up I'm talking about. The one where we make a choice. Now, I'm just going to take a breath here, and then we've received a few questions already today from friends who've been watching and who've kindly taken the time to write questions that they would like to have looked at. I may or may not have something beneficial or wise to say, but let me take a look and see what comes. So you might want to shake yourself out a little bit and just relax as I'm looking at the questions. These questions are marvelous. Well, the first one I'm going to respond to because it's just very quick. Somebody's asking if I will address in this retreat a teaching about an awareness practice method that I gave in a smaller group retreat setting this winter. And the answer is yes, it's already on the agenda. It's tomorrow morning. And the next question is, hi Barbara, what are the ramifications of breaking a vow? That is, letting beings down because promised to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all beings and to the person who breaks the vow? Well, I think it depends on the vow. In my experience, it would depend on the vow. Some vows are so critical that you really want to keep them pretty much at any cost to yourself. And sometimes you can't. I'm not thinking of particular examples, so I won't go there. I don't want to try to make something up, but sometimes you're not able to keep a vow. And sometimes what looks like, and as I'm speaking to this, the person who's asked the question or others for whom this is a meaningful question, just let your own mind find the examples that are meaningful to you and what I'm speaking of. And sometimes it looks as if the most important thing for virtuous action is to maintain a vow one has taken. But sometimes there is maybe a higher virtue in, at least for the moment, abandoning that vow for the benefit of another. So I think that leads me to want to say, what is the essence commitment in the vow that you're taking? Because the form of things only exists as an expression of their essence. So if the vow is, for example, not to drink or eat a certain substance for a certain period of time, as some practices call for, and then perhaps you fall ill, and that substance that you forswore for X period of time is actually needed for you to recover, or would make it possible to recover, then you get to choose. And this veers over to the territory of another question, which I'll go into in more detail as well, but I've been taught that we should do our best to live as long as possible, because that way we purify as much karma as we possibly can, and do that for the benefit of all. So in a case where you had forsworn a certain substance and then your illness really called for you to have, say, food, perhaps you forswore food for a while, and really your condition weakened too much and you needed to take food, then you get to decide whether the form of the vow, the words of the vow, the material meaning of the vow is something that you want to hold to, even though the higher meaning of the vow might have been a part of your Bodhisattva commitment to liberate all beings from suffering and ignorance into the natural state. So then you get to reflect on what is the meaning of this vow that I took, and how can I best fulfill it. And then you can ask your Lama, and you never know what's going to happen when you do that. But if you're confronted with the possibility of maintaining a vow or abandoning a vow, and the decision is one of self-interest, and preserving your life is not necessarily a matter of self-interest. If you're a bodhisattva, it's really not a matter of self-interest necessarily at all. If you have a commitment to benefiting beings, then the longer you're here, perhaps the better chance you have of doing that with many. Doesn't mean you have to stop when you die either, though, so don't take it that way. But self-interest is the low road. It keeps us mired in the habits and confusions that cause suffering and harm for us, as well as for others. So if your vow is going to lift you from self-interest, do your best to go there. If the vow is going to be broken for the benefit of you yourself in some self-indulging way, hang in there. Don't break that vow if you don't have to. But if you need to break the vow in order to maintain your life or to be of benefit to somebody who needs you in some way in that particular time, consider abandoning the vow that has form in this moment for the ultimate vow, which is to never abandon a sentient being. I hope that that's a helpful response. It put it right back into your lap. There might be a thought of punishment lurking in that question. You can abandon the thought of punishment. That's, at least if you're on the path of the Bodhisattva and the Buddha Dharma, it's not about punishment. It's about karma and aspiration. In other words, it's about self, interest, or love. So have that in mind when you think about your vows. It's a really interesting contemplation to open up, isn't it? I look forward to maybe hearing, I'm going to keep this and remember your name, and if you would like at some point to let me know what you do with this, I would really be happy to hear, okay? Thank you. And this beautiful next question, this thought that I'm abandoned keeps coming up in my consciousness during and in between meditations. It's accompanied by a feeling of tension in the body. Could you please talk about how I can deal with this? Yeah. Yes. Look at the two meanings of abandoned, right? You can be abandoned by everybody who you care about. You can be abandoned by who you think are gods. You can be abandoned by your country. You can be abandoned by this and that, and feel bereft and maybe be bereft and feel just helpless and lonely and oh no, how can I possibly go on? Everybody has abandoned me. Or you can think, I am abandoned to the absolute. I am abandoned to love. I am abandoned to truth. I abandon self-concern. I am abandoned to love. I invite you to play on the edge, that point of tension in the body. Tension is usually self-grasping, but of course, if you recognize it, it is the moment in which you can release self-grasping. So pay attention to that tension in the body and start to play on the edge that has just been opened up here by looking at two meanings of the word abandoned. Yeah? I'm going to do that myself, but not right here, right now. Yes, I will. Abandon to love, anytime, any place, yeah? And sometimes to be abandoned in the relative reality circumstance of our lives frees us, really frees us to abandon that which we've been clinging to and to abandon ourselves as the object of the greatest import, and to become abandoned to truth and abandoned to love. So play on that edge a little bit and see what happens for you, okay? And we have one more question here. I have a question or topic that perhaps you can address for us older ones. To cut to the chase, to intubate or not. This does not just apply to the older ones, my dear. I know who this person is. This is somebody I know well. This is not just about old people. There are young people on those tubes. A lot of young people on those tubes. So she's saying, do you know what the word intubate means? Yes, everybody? To be on a ventilator, so that the doctor takes your airway and you're on a breathing tube, basically. And many people with coronavirus, with COVID-19, are being put onto the ventilator to help them survive. It sometimes is effective and it's sometimes not. So to intubate or not, if we find ourselves in a state of needing it to survive, you have many times, meaning she's addressing this to me, you have many times expressed that to stay alive as long as possible is the generous way to go, right? Question mark. Maybe not your words, but my understanding of your words. Thank you for considering this haunting question. Well, I'm considering it also for myself. I'm one of the old ones, but, you know, as I say, it's really not a matter of age, although older people are reported to be having a much higher incidence of death from the COVID-19. This is of the essence of an individual decision, isn't it? And I'm wrestling with it myself, not wrestling. I already know where I am with it, but I could probably be swayed. But there's no answer that would be anything but individual in its import. This is such a personal decision. the guidance to live as long as possible I received from my first Poa Lama. Poa is the practice in the Tibetan tradition by which the practitioner is able for oneself or for another only after training, and also for oneself requires training, to transfer your own consciousness or the consciousness of another to what's called a pure realm, a pure land, which means to the absolute state. So this Lama was very familiar with death and dying and the post-death state. Was a Poa master who traveled the world to give this training to others. And he's the one who said this. He gave this guidance, probably in response to a question in a situation like this, except that there were people in the room physically at that time, and many who were not in their bodies, no doubt, who wanted to listen to their Lama, who had transferred their consciousness. Who knows? I'm just making that up, but that was fun. So, so he said, our responsibility is to live as long as we can and to take the medicine, do everything you can to stay alive, take the medicine, and when it's clear that you will not be able to continue in this body, to cheerfully die for the benefit of others, the benefit of all, to give your life for the benefit of all, cheerfully and without clinging. So I've, a number of times in my life, come to the point where I had to sort of sensed that I needed to make a decision about that, about whether to live or die. The most recent time, well, actually, it's not the most recent time. Some time back, I had a lovely cancer adventure, and it was very evident to me in that interval, that little Bardo, that the door was somewhat ajar and I could leave. And it would have been very easy to do so, just very easy. So I asked my teacher at the time how I ought to think about that. And she paused and pondered it. And then she said, in this case, do the best you can to stay. Do whatever you can to stay. She was clearly recognizing the potential to not stay. So she was saying, make the choice to do whatever you can to prolong your life. And I asked the reason. And she said, because it will be of benefit to others to see the transformation involved. So I made that commitment, and here I am. That was many years ago. As an old person, if I thought that my continuing I'm taking this in a personal way, the question, I don't know how else to speak to it. There's no rule here that I'm aware of. As an old person, I'm thinking perhaps a little differently about that, frankly, I would, what I look at now is, do I still have work to do? Is my life still of benefit to others? And I could imagine so easily being at a moment when I would say to myself, is my life or my death of greater benefit right now? That would be the question I would ask now, I think. And I would ask in an inner way, and in that inner way, the answer is almost always instantaneously present. So I don't think I would be in any doubt about the decision. I also look at statistics for certain things. When I had cancer, I looked at statistics for one of the treatments that I was being recommended to take, which was a treatment I definitely didn't want. And then I got the numbers. I said, bingo, I'm there. Do it. Right? The numbers were really dramatic about my chances of survival. If I did take the treatment, my chances of death fairly quickly. If I didn't take the treatment, the numbers were incontrovertible, so I went forward. It's not always that clear, but if you're looking at intubation, there's a lot of data. And it still isn't clear what an individual ought to do or what an individual's outcome would do. And here's where we need to talk about karma. But, we don't have much time today, but we can do that tomorrow. We'll talk about karma. I really want us to have the opportunity to think very clearly, particularly those of us who are Westerners, who really have not grown up with an understanding of what karma really means. And so we have a very kind of primitive way of thinking about karma and as it applies to our own lives and our own minds. So tomorrow maybe somebody be kind enough to remind me that I really want to spend some time talking about karma. And I'll definitely spend time talking about karma in the afternoon, but I'd like to touch it also in the morning. So I'll look for a reminder somehow appearing on my desk to that extent. This is my desk. The reminder will appear here. I see somebody volunteering to put that reminder. I think she just wrote it down and it's going to appear on my desk. What I would say to you, my darling friend, who raised this question, have the courage to know your own mind. Have the courage to know your own mind. If it comes to the question of intubation and you have a choice, if you're really not conscious, you may not have a choice. They may just take your airway and work with you. If you know in advance that you don't want to be intubated, then you need to sign an order. You need to have what's called a DNI, preferably with a safety pin on your body, on your dress, coat, jacket, shirt. DNI means do not intubate. It's like a DNR, do not resuscitate. Many of us would want a DNR order on our bodies if we were going to be taken in old age or extremely risky situation. We would want a DNR order so that we wouldn't be resuscitated if there were no benefit, for that, no likelihood of really recovering from it. But these are very individual decisions. I don't even think that except for us as practitioners of the Buddha Dharma, they would be considered in the realm of ethics for individuals to make decisions on these things. But our personal ethics and our Dharma ethics definitely can come into play here. And I think that each of us needs to really look closely at what that means for us, because that could happen to any of us next week. We're in that kind of a precarious situation, very precarious. So this isn't going to be an answer of yes, you should or shouldn't intubate, but yes, you should definitely consider what the meaning of that action or that refusal to take that action, if you have the choice, what the meaning of that would be for you in terms of your spiritual commitment as a bodhisattva, as a person committed on the path of the bodhisattva to be of benefit to all beings in all your lifetimes. And that's the light to shine on this question. What is the meaning of that choice? And how best can you fulfill that commitment it won't look the same on everybody necessarily, do you know? I mean, we're very individual. Our karma is very individual. So it's a seeking within of an understanding and of a knowledge and of the wisdom within that has some sense of the place you are in this lifetime in relation to your purpose, and how best to fulfill it in whatever time remains. Now you can pat that little Juliana on the head for me and say, "Thank you, Juliana, that was really inspiring." That's the cat. The cat didn't write this question, but the cat's on the couch, maybe. So, we're at the end of our day, just our first day. No, we're not. We're at the end of our afternoon. This evening, I want to give meditation opportunity for us to gather. Wherever you are, if you're with others or alone, let's meet at 7. I'll be here in the temple with you. Let's meet at 7. And you don't have to tune in if you don't want to, but I will give some meditation instruction or guidance. And the reason I want to do that is that, and the reason I want us to meditate together tonight is to make a bridge for tomorrow's work. The teachings of the Bardo Thotrol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the teachings about, they are teachings about the ultimate, and they are given as guidance for the living. They are used as instructions, as I said, as a roadmap for those who are dead, who are in the Bardo states between death and rebirth. But they are actually instructions and guidance for those of us who are living. And so we need to find ways to bring our lives into an active relationship with teachings about the ultimate lived in the relative. And how to do that. It's like we need to create that bridge intentionally. And working with the mind directly is the way to do that. So our meditative disciplines are critical to our ability to live in this lifetime that we're in the relative reality, to live these teachings of the highest. And so I invite you to come tonight, and we're going to start there. And then tomorrow morning, we'll go further, and tomorrow afternoon, further still. Okay, with inner practice and also outer practice in the afternoon. So, thank you. Let's do our closing prayers, and that will include the 3 repetitions of the 4-line verse of Shantideva that we did this morning. So these dedication prayers are just as effulgent as the aspiration prayers. They are so uplifting. They go on and on. It's quite lengthy. I'm going to read them all because, oh my gosh, maybe I can't. They're really long. Let's see here. Well, let's see how far I get. There's a phrase that starts, by this merit, meaning by the merit of our coming for teachings and our sitting together in a practitioner way, by the merit of our aspirations on the path, and by the merit of all of our committed actions on the path. That when they refer to merit, they're referring to that virtue. And that virtue, that merit, is love. We do this for the benefit of all. It's not for our own benefit exclusively or even primarily. It's for the benefit of all beings. By this merit may I attain omniscience. Having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings, may I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Whatever virtue sentient beings possess, whatever good they have done, will do, and are doing now, whatever goodness there may be, may it permeate all beings everywhere. By the virtue accumulated throughout the 3 times by others and myself, may all beings filling the reaches of space enter the gateway of the unexcelled path, and may they attain the Vajra holder's ground. By all the virtue actually performed and mentally created by myself and all sentient beings of the 3 times, may all beings of the 6 realms attain the 5 kayas and realize the primordial wisdom of the Buddhas in the Dharma Dhatu Mandala of the awakened mind. Glorious Root Guru, precious one who sits upon a lotus at my heart, hold me with kindness and grant me all accomplishments of enlightened body, speech, and mind. I pray for the excellent health of the Guru. I pray that he lives a supremely long life. I pray that his activities spread far and wide. Grant blessings that I may not be separate from my Guru. May the Buddha's teachings, the only source of benefit and happiness, endure long, and may the victory banner of longevity for those upholding the teachings be steadfast. May the sound of the great Dharma drum liberate all sentient beings from suffering. Please remain and teach the Dharma for infinite millions of kalpas. By the might of this powerful merit, may the aspirations of the benefactors and their circles be accomplished within this very life. May their obstacles be pacified, may everything be auspicious, and may their wishes be fulfilled according to the Dharma. Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantrabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues. As all such dedications have been praised as supreme by the victorious ones of the 3 times, I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue to excellent conduct. By the blessing of the Buddhas who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging nature of reality, and by the blessing of the undivided Sangha community, may my prayers be fulfilled according to this dedication. By the virtues accumulated in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the intrinsic root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious awakening. Great Vajradhara, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord Gampopa, Vamodrupa, and Lord Rikungpa, may the auspiciousness of all the Kagyu Lamas prevail. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage Lamas, divine assembly of Yidams, assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, Yogini and her assembly of Dakinis, all of you dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of attachment, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, respect, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. At the moment of death, may I not experience the suffering of being abruptly severed from this life. May I not suffer a terrible death. May I not die confused by wrong views. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind itself and in the crystal clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the Bardo. Long life prayer for His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. Tenzin Gyatso, Lord Chenrezig, may you remain steadfast until the end of samsara. Long life prayer for His Holiness Drikung Kyabgyun Chetsang Rinpoche, embodiment of the 3 jewels, great being who upholds and increases the teachings of the Shakya Lion. Supreme are your activities of guiding others with your perfect deeds. May you, the precious Guru who accomplishes everything spontaneously, live long. And for His Holiness Drikung Kyabgyun Chungtsang Rinpoche, holder of the teachings of Lord Drikungpa, great Lord of the 3 jewels, through the power of your peerless compassion and the holy Dharma's peace and light, you bring relief to beings. May your life be long. And for His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, The one known in the Holy Land as Aryadeva, emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Chudingpa, the heart son of Jigten Gumpo. May the life of glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama composed a long life prayer for His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. Here it is. Crown of the Shakyas, kind friend to strangers, the 17 great Panditas, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, Jigten, Sumgan, and their lineage heirs, please bestow good fortune and auspiciousness. Protector Amitayus, transcendent Lord who grants supreme life, everlasting, stable, and unchanging, and who diverts from untimely death anyone who merely hears your name or thinks of you, please bestow good fortune and auspiciousness. Living austerely in the higher training of discipline, full of compassion that is the glory of those to be tamed, devoid of all grasping, never parting from Mahamudra's natural state, Nedun Tenpe Nyima, son of the teachings, may your life remain firm. May the teachings of the great Rikumpa Ratna Shri, Master of Interdependence, omniscient Lord of Dharma, who has seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Homage to Chenrezig, otherwise known as Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 wheel-turning kings. Your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon. Your love is boundless like space. I supplicate to the Bodhisattva Chenrezig, Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. And now the verse of Shantideva. Again, I'll recite it once slowly to remind us what it is, and then we'll do 3 times. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. Okay, so 3 times together. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. I should mention that on the website of the Garchen Institute, there are some documents to be downloaded, and the meditations that we're going to be doing are included among them. Okay, I think that's it. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody. See you in a little bit, 7 o'clock.